After years of back and forth, the U.S. Supreme Court says it will hear the case between the city of Boulder and oil and gas companies ExxonMobil and Suncor Energy. The city accuses the companies of trying to block lawsuits that would hold the industry liable for billions of dollars in damage from climate change. 9 News legal expert Whitney Traylor joins us here this morning to talk more about this case. So I think we should start with what exactly are the legal issues here?
Yeah, no, that's a great start. And it's a really interesting case, and it's highly consequential because if this case is allowed to go forward, you're going to see a lot of lawsuits like this. So essentially what's happening is Boulder County and San Miguel County filed the lawsuit in state court with these state court claims. So they said public nuisance, private nuisance, violation of the Colorado Consumer Protection Act. Well, they filed that in 2018, and since then, Suncor and ExxonMobil have been trying to remove it to federal court, saying, hey, these are federal issues. This is something that should be litigated under the Federal Clean Air Act. And so it was going back and forth into federal court, into state court, and it ultimately went to the Colorado Supreme Court, who said, no, these state court claims can go forward. And now why this is so consequential is because the U.S. Supreme Court accepted the case. So they're going to actually hear it. They accepted writ, so they're going to hear it and make that determination of whether the case can still go forward, because there hasn't even been a trial yet. So this has all been legal procedural issues.
And that brings up the next question.
Yeah.
How long could this go on for? I mean, do you have a sense of the timing on a case like this?
Well, we have a sense of the timing. I believe they set it for oral arguments in October, so in the fall term. So that would be with the Supreme Court. Now, then it's going to take the Supreme Court several months to rule, and presumably they're going to have to send it back to state court. Whatever they rule, if they say there's not jurisdiction or there is, they're going to have to send it back. So if they say, hey, these counties can go forward with these lawsuits and they can go forward in state court, then you're going to see it remanded and then go to trial in the state court. So we're looking at years of trial, appeals, and litigation before it's ultimately decided.
You hinted at this earlier, Whitney, but I'll ask you point blank. Do you expect this particular case to lead to similar cases moving forward?
Yes, I do think this will lead to similar cases, and this is a novel approach. I mean, Hawaii tried the same thing in 2023. They filed their lawsuit, and the Hawaii Supreme Court said, yeah, you can go forward with these state claims, but the U.S. Supreme Court didn't accept writ. So we don't have any definitive answers. So if these counties are allowed to go forward, and because the issue is, hey, did Suncor and Exxon contribute to this climate change, and did they know that they were contributing, and were they deceptive? And the reason that's relevant is because now we have increased temperature, droughts, wildfire. In fact, a lot of people are blaming the 2021 Marshall Fire on this climate change. So if this is allowed to go forward, and especially if they prevail, if the counties prevail, you're going to see a plethora of cases and against a lot of fossil fuel, a lot of energy companies saying, hey, you've been contributing and you knew that this was going to that this was causing these type of climate effects.
Let's assume that Boulder was to win this
Yes.
case. What do they, as the plaintiffs, what do they recover?
That's a great question, and that's going to be a really difficult question for the jury, because this is going to be a technical, if the case is allowed to go forward, it's going to be a technical case. One, just understanding fossil fuels, emissions, things of that nature, and then being able to point to it and say, well, specifically Suncor and Exxon, you did this. And so the jury is going to have to filter through all of that information and then make a determination as to how much these damages have caused the state specifically. And they're saying that it's hundreds of millions of dollars when you're looking at climate change. Right. So that's going to be, and every case boils down to two things: liability, did somebody do something wrong? And then if they did, what are the damages? How much is this going to cost? And a lot of times the liability might be easy, but figuring out the damages is a challenge. So in this case, that's going to be hard to pinpoint. Here's how much Exxon and Suncor contributed to the climate change.
We've already established this could drag on for years.
Yes.
Can I pin you down on what the next step is? I mean, what happens next?
Yeah. So the next step, you can't pin me down on that. The next step is the U.S. Supreme Court is going to have these oral arguments, and then they're going to make a determination as to whether this is a federal lawsuit and it essentially gets dismissed and they rule in favor of Suncor and Exxon, or they say, no, these state claims can go forward If that happens, it's going to go back and we're going to have a trial in the state court. So that, it's going to be years, but that would be the process, is either the case gets dismissed from the Supreme Court or it gets remanded for trial in state court.
9 News legal expert Whitney Traylor. Whitney, thanks for joining us on this Tuesday morning.
Yes, good to be here.